Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessie. If you are new here, I do all kinds of videos about living with chronic illness, specifically Hashimoto's, which is what we'll kind of talk about today. I talk about personal finance, but then I also just share lifestyle videos, which is why I'm sharing my pregnancy currently. I am hoping that I'm not out of breath the entire time I do this video, but I'm trying to like sit forward, and I have a stomach now, so that gets in the way. So today's video, I wanted to talk about getting pregnant with Hashimoto's. I have gotten a lot of questions on this from my 2-week wait video, my finding out I'm pregnant video, which I'll link them down below in like a pregnancy playlist that you guys can take a look at. First, I'm going to start this video with saying, if you are new here and you're just stopping in for this video, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you being here. I am not a doctor. I am not even slightly knowledgeable in the space of Hashimoto's and pregnancy. So like, I just wanted to make this video in the sense that I've had so many people asking questions about how I got pregnant living with Hashimoto's, my story with Hashimoto's, and all that kind of stuff. But I still wanted to make this video about my experience. Just want to put that disclaimer that like, obviously I'm not a doctor. I am just a 34-year-old woman who has had Hashimoto's for 12 years and is now pregnant. So I thought that I would do a quick video. I have some notes here, so if you see me looking at that, that is why. But let's jump into some of my notes about this. My very quick and dirty story with Hashimoto's. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism now about 12 years ago. I wasn't diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is the autoimmune version of hypothyroid. I don't remember the exact statistic, but it's like a lot of people that have hypothyroidism actually have Hashimoto's, but they don't even know it. And I was definitely one of those people. It wasn't until I had a doctor actually take the correct thyroid levels figure that out. But basically, if you're living with hypothyroidism and you're taking medication and you still feel like crap all the time, I would get checked out for Hashimoto's. Anyway, so I was diagnosed forever ago with hypothyroidism. I went on levothyroxine right away. It took a while for me to get regulated, and then I kind of like went up and down for quite a few years until I was like 27, 28, when I kind of hit this plateau where I started to gain weight again. I started to have really bad brain fog, not feel really good, and went to see a doctor again to check me for like iron deficiencies and all this other stuff, because my thyroid levels were normal on medication. And she took an antibodies test, found out I had Hashimoto's, sent me to an endocrinologist who made me feel terrible. In fact, he was the one that told me if I ever get pregnant that I should tell him before I tell my husband, because pregnancy is going to be hard. So that was my first thought process behind Hashimoto's and pregnancy, was that if I ever got pregnant, it was an emergency to tell my doctor about it. And I just didn't like the way that he handled that. So I actually started working with a naturopathic and chiropractic doctor, and she has regulated my Hashimoto's for the last few years. We have done everything from, if I have a Hashimoto's video about this, I'll tell you guys, but we have done everything from gut testing and protocols. We've done hormone testing and protocols. I've tried every diet. I've been exclusively gluten-free and dairy-free. I've been vegan. I've been all these different types of things to see what would help. And I've definitely lessened my antibodies via lifestyle changes, like not eating gluten, taking better care of myself, cutting out a lot of stress. Stress is killer for Hashimoto's, which is great when you're trying to get pregnant, right? And then I also went on something called low-dose naltrexone, which I don't have a ton of background on it. That was also something that we did in hopes that it would help with my antibodies. But in general, I gained a lot of weight. I have talked about this on my channel quite a bit in the last 4 years, but particularly the first 2 years, I gained 50 to 60 pounds total. And that was really scary for me. I'm a very small person, so that has been quite a bit of weight. I'm considered overweight, if not obese, for my height, according to BMI, which is also something that they get really nervous about with pregnancy. my antibody levels, just as an FYI, have never been super high. I have heard of women having antibodies in the thousands. Mine, I think the highest I've ever been is a couple hundred. So I've never had high antibodies. When I got pregnant, I would say my antibodies were probably around 50 or 60, which is actually pretty low. It's pretty good for someone with Hashimoto's. And I think they're up around closer to 100 now since I've gotten pregnant. So that's kind of like the quick and dirty, as quickly as I could, information background on where my Hashimoto's was. So when I started to want to get pregnant, it was about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now. We did everything. I mean, I have been off birth control for 3 years now. Yeah, I got off birth control right before our wedding because that was, to be honest, birth control messed me up more than Hashimoto. So I'm just saying that. I've been on birth control since I was 15 and it was terrible for my body. I went off birth control a long time ago, so I have been tracking my periods in the Flow app as a way to know when I'm ovulating and that kind of stuff. So we kind of tried a few times, and then we were in a really bad financial place like right around COVID, so we stopped. We moved here and decided that we were going to try again. So basically I followed my Flow app, so I knew about the time that I would be ovulating. Flow was never exactly right. I feel like if you're trying to get pregnant, you can kind of tell in your body's way of showing ovulation. Like for me, I would have more energy, I would get more discharge. I could just tell when I was ovulating or around the time I was, and it usually matched up with Flow. We did that for 6 or 7 months before I got pregnant the first time last year, which unfortunately did end in an early miscarriage. I miscarried around 6 weeks, which you can blame on Hashimoto's. You cannot blame on Hashimoto's. It really, we have no proof of what happened. Hashimoto's is linked to infertility and miscarriage, but we have no way of knowing if my Hashimoto's is actually what caused the 6 months of trying, which is still considered normal, and also the miscarriage. We have no idea. After that, I waited again because after the miscarriage, it was pretty disheartening and I just didn't want to go through that again. So we didn't try again for like 6 or 7 months. And then that time I got pregnant, like my first or second cycle that we tried. So I didn't have trouble getting pregnant. After my miscarriage, I ended up deciding that I wanted to eat a vegan diet. Do I believe that the vegan diet is what helped me get pregnant? No, in fact, a lot of people who study Hashimoto's tell you not to eat a vegan diet. But what I will tell you is it was probably the first time in my life that I didn't have so much pressure around food. My doctors have had me on so many protocols, so many diets, plus before that I did the whole if it fits your macros stuff, and like I've just been dieting like my whole effing life. I think that eating a vegan diet was actually the least restrictive thing that I've ever done, because I was still eating gluten, which is actually something I shouldn't be eating. Gluten, they say, is something you should definitely cut out if you have Hashimoto's. I already have a gluten sensitivity, so it's something I know I should cut out. I just struggle with it sometimes. But so I did eat vegan again. I don't really know that it was actually the diet, because I wasn't eating like a healthy vegan diet. I don't know that that was actually what helped. What I actually think helped is that my stress levels decreased. I started therapy. I worked through the like trauma of having a miscarriage. I worked through some stuff that Ben and I were going through. Ben got a job and he's been working for himself for years. If you've watched our channel, we were in a really, really bad financial spot when I got pregnant as well. So I think just the last few months of like working through stress was really helpful. Like I said in the beginning, stress and Hashimoto's is like a no-go. It's so bad for your hormones and it's so bad for your thyroid. But like, you know when doctors tell you to like reduce stress and you're like, how am I supposed to do that? That's how I felt my whole life. And I was lucky that I had some really great clients. I let go of some clients that weren't the right fit for me. I started therapy. I started some group work that I was doing. Ben got a job. We kind of evened out financially. And I do think that those things helped me. And quite honestly, another thing that helped is that I wasn't that focused on getting pregnant. And I feel like this is something that so many people will tell you to do, and it's so hard to do, but I had kind of come to terms with the fact that it was going to happen when it was going to happen. I was tired of people telling me that it was going to be hard because I have Hashimoto's. I was tired of people telling me it was going to be hard because I'm overweight. I was tired of people telling me it was going to be hard because I'm 34. I was just tired of all of that, quite honestly, and I just kind of like let life happen. I was happy with where I was at. I worked through all of that stress, and I still have stress and anxiety. Those are things that aren't just gonna like magically go away, but they were things that I was able to work through, which I do think really helped not only my Hashimoto's symptoms, but also my just overall health. I'll also say I was taking Armour thyroid before I got, or when I got pregnant. They made me switch to levothyroxine a few weeks ago, which I would prefer to still be on Armour. They claim that it can't penetrate the placenta, so it's dangerous to be on Armour. I don't know if I believe that. I was kind of scare tacticked into that, so I went on to levothyroxine, which isn't my favorite medication to be on because I don't feel like it helps entirely, but I do have my naturopathic and chiropractic doctors watching my thyroid levels because I just don't trust regular medicine to do that, because they don't test things like your antibodies. They test TSH, and like TSH shows me nothing. I will say, once you do get pregnant, if you have Hashimoto's, they are like constantly watching you like a hawk, which is good and bad. It's good because you want them to be watching the baby, but at the same time, it can be really stressful on your own system. It definitely made me feel like I wasn't a great mom because I had an autoimmune disease, even though it's not my fault. So that's when like the scare tactic thing happened with the levothyroxine and the Armour. They had me come off of my LDN as well, which is fine because at the time I couldn't swallow pills, so it wasn't going well for me anyway. But they do want to watch your levels. Some doctors are your thyroid levels. Some doctors are more strict than others. I actually feel like my OB practice, because I don't really work with one OB, I work with multiple, and a nurse practitioner. I don't feel like they are cautious enough. I would actually prefer my thyroid levels to be watched more, which is why I still have my naturopath and chiropractic team doing that versus the OB, just because I don't feel like they're taking care of me. They're just like believing that I'm within a normal range. They don't really care how it affects me, whereas like my doctor cares how it affects me and baby. I also had to have like a maternal fetal medicine appointment. I don't know if everybody that has Hashimoto's has to do this or not, and I have to have like the baby just like checked later on. And I think once the baby is out, I believe that like when the actual Hashimoto's issue could come up is when they're actually seeing a pediatrician, because they want to make sure that the baby doesn't have the autoimmune Hashimoto's or hypothyroid. So, but that's kind of outside of what this video is about. I'm just telling you what my experience has been like so far with Hashimoto's when I am pregnant. I didn't really do anything that much differently than other people who try to get pregnant do. I feel like, yes, can Hashimoto's affect your infertility? 100%, and there's 1,000 channels, 1,000 doctors, 1,000 articles that you can read about that'll stress you out about it if that's what you want to do. I just never did that. I have refused my whole life to believe that Hashimoto's is going to ruin my life. I just didn't let myself think that, so I didn't worry about it. I knew that my thyroid levels were under control. I had lower antibodies. I was doing the right things for my stress levels. I was working with the right doctors who cared about me and cared about me feeling better, that I felt like I was in a good place to get pregnant, and I did. There is 100%, 1,000% a chance that somebody who's in the same exact scenario as me with Hashimoto's could struggle with infertility. Infertility is something that like nobody understands fully, and I have been lucky enough that it hasn't affected me, but I wasn't going to let my Hashimoto's be another piece of that would stress me out. Infertility is in millions, unfortunately, thousands of women who don't have Hashimoto's. In fact, all the people that I watch on YouTube who have infertility issues don't have Hashimoto's. They're connected, yes, Again, I don't know scientifically exactly how connected they are, but they're connected. But I just like didn't allow that into my head. I just didn't focus on it. I didn't worry about it. One thing I would recommend, if this is something that you really care about, there are Hashimoto's trying to conceive groups for people with Hashimoto's that can be helpful. Be careful with Facebook groups because they're filled with Karens, but they're also filled with people who are scared and are worried and get really worked up about stuff, and sometimes that's not great for you to consume. But it is also full of like plenty of women who are getting pregnant or who are helping with like helpful tips that have helped them. So I'll try to link one Facebook group in particular that I'm in, that I've been in for a really long time. Sometimes the posts aren't great, sometimes they are. So you have to kind of play it by ear based on what is best for you. I've just gotten so many comments on my videos being like, how have you gotten pregnant with Hashimoto's? Or people are like, I have this many antibodies, will I ever get pregnant? I can't answer that for you. Honestly, a doctor can't even answer that for you, but I would work with a doctor in those types of scenarios to try to figure it out. My biggest thing about doctors is find one that cares about you, that tests more than just TSH, and that is willing to work with you on this. There are plenty out there, but sometimes it takes a lot of digging. It took me a long time to find my current doctor. And I will say the OBGYN that I had before I got pregnant, who unfortunately isn't the one that I have now, was also very calm, cool, collected about having Hashimoto. She wasn't worried about it at all. She didn't think it was gonna affect me at all, which I think also helped my mental health. Really, it was the endocrinologist 6 years ago that freaked me out about all this stuff. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that this was at least helpful to hear like my point of view, even if I didn't tell you exactly how to lower your antibodies and get pregnant, because I don't know how to do that. But I hope that this helped you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.